Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And we are back with our Week 9 NFL recap. And we have so much to cover. The trade deadline ended on Tuesday, the 4th at 4 o'clock Eastern. And there were so many moves, tons of impactful moves to a lot of playoff contenders and a team basically fire sailing everybody talented on their roster. And we're going to unpack it all for you guys in this episode. But first, we have to discuss the ref call of the week. And it concerned that nationally televised Chiefs and Bills game in the 325 slot. And it was an intentional grounding call called on Patrick Mahomes that it may not have been as impactful as some of the ref calls that we cover on a weekly basis, but it was certainly the subject of lots of debate, even by Gene Steratore and the announcing crew on the broadcast. So I'm going to pass it to you, Tyler, to give us kind of the background of that call before our discussion.
Yeah. So what had happened was if you didn't watch the game or didn't get a chance to see the clip or don't remember it, Patrick Mahomes threw a ball that was tipped by the defense that was called intentional grounding. The refs didn't think it was tipped. The replay shows it was clearly tipped, but that's not what we're debating. We're not debating if it was tipped or not. Andy Reid, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, throws a challenge flag. The refs discuss for a good period of time and then eventually tell Andy Reid this is not reviewable. Now, typically you cannot review penalties, such as like if you see a holding penalty, you can't throw the challenge flag and be like, he held the jersey, that should have been a holding penalty, or vice versa. But when it comes to a tipped ball, you can review elements of a penalty. A couple other examples real quick is if the quarterback is throwing an illegal forward pass, you can review where the quarterback was in relation to the line of scrimmage. If they throw a pass interference call on a ball that was tipped where it shouldn't have been called pass interference, you can review if the ball was tipped. That would then negate a penalty or not. But that idea is what causes debate. Andy Reid throws a challenge flag saying, hey, the ball was tipped. I'm reviewing that portion of the play. The officials say that it is not reviewable. The reason that I am bringing this up as my ref call of the week is I like to consider myself a rules expert. But Andy Reid, who has been a head coach longer than I've been alive, knows the rules more than I do. And yet there is still debate between a ref and that head coach if that's a reviewable play. So now we're going to dissect that.
Certainly, and there's certainly a lot to unpack there. Another element of the play, if you didn't see it, was Mahomes was arguing that his arm was hit on the throw. He was doing this motion. My arm was hit, but that is not the case. His arm was never touched during the play, and so that also could have lent confusion to both the refs and Andy Reid, because if Andy Reid saw Mahomes motioning, hey, my arm's hit, maybe he throws the flag to challenge that element, because you can challenge that element of that play, right? And so there's a lot of moving parts. And additionally, you mentioned that the refs came together to discuss the play. That is fairly typical of intentional grounding calls, though, isn't it? Because it's very similar to the illegal shift call against Detroit in Kansas City, in which the umpire has to discuss with the side judge, hey, was Mahomes out of the pocket? Then he has to discuss with the line judge, was the ball past the line of scrimmage? And then he has to discuss with, the back judge, was there a receiver in the area? And if all of those elements are met, then they kind of drop the flag unceremoniously after discussion. But so that's fairly typical. That's not something we have to get all up in arms about, right? That long discussion.
No, a long discussion is actually good because it's making sure the refs are on the same page. And to go against Mahomes, actually, the arm being hit actually doesn't have anything to do with anything. Because if you're under pressure and you're just trying to get the ball out to ground the ball, well, yeah, your arm's probably going to get hit. But that doesn't mean you did not intentionally ground the ball.
Sure.
However, this is where the controversy begins now. If the ball is tipped and you're throwing in the direction of a receiver and the ball goes nowhere near the receiver, well, now it's because the ball is tipped. If you're throwing in the direction of a receiver it's not intentional grounding because you're throwing towards a receiver and the ball would have ended up in the area of a receiver, negating an intentional grounding penalty.
Sure. So, but I think the crux of that is Andy Reid correct? And that is a challengeable element because that's essentially what he would be challenging, right?
Mhm. It is, and
Are the
that's what he
refs
tried to challenge.
are the refs correct in saying that that element of intentional grounding is not reviewable? Who is correct, I guess, in that
So
sense? Is that where the
I'm gonna.
debate centers?
That is where the debate centers: is can Andy Reid challenge a tipped ball in that regard? And again, to the audience, we're not debating if the ball was tipped or not. It was clearly tipped. It's not in a scenario where replay assist can come in because it's not obvious. You had to slow down to see it was tipped. It's not obvious, so replay assist really can't come in there.
Additionally,
Um,
on that note, really
mhm,
quickly, the NFL's 2025 season competition committee, like reasoning, I guess, per operationsnfl.com, is replay assist can only review intentional grounding relative to the pocket or the ball landing beyond the line of scrimmage. Those are the two elements specifically outlined by the competition
mhm.
committee. So once again, this would be under another element of replay, not replay assist.
Correct. And so to really I feel like we're almost going in circles now. To really reiterate everything, if we've already lost the viewers, listen to this. We are debating, can a tipped ball for intentional grounding be reviewed? Can it be reviewed? That's what we're debating. And I'm actually going to quote Gene Steratore here. There is an article from, I believe it's Sports Illustrated, where they talk about this and they quote Gene Steratore from the broadcast. So this is Gene Steratore's words from the broadcast. It says, quote, I don't see why we would not be able to review something there because where this football lands is related directly to the fact that the ball gets tipped. So, in the area that gets moved around now because of the tipped ball, and I think that's what Andy Reid is pleading to Carl Sheffers right now. Uh, in summary, he's saying, yes, the ball was nowhere near a receiver, but the ball being nowhere near a receiver is directly related to the fact that the ball was tipped. So therefore, it should be reviewable because you're not challenging the penalty, you're challenging the element of the tipped ball, which can be reviewed. So I believe the refs got it wrong. According to Gene Steratore's words, the refs got it wrong. This should have been reviewed.
And I think that that is significant because Gene Steratore typically sides with the refs almost every time. Even when I disagree with the call, Gene Steratore tends to kind of toe the line a little bit. And I
He
don't
certainly
think
plays devil's advocate a lot,
I,
yes.
but
But he
I,
also backs it up with the rule.
yeah, but even when it's a blatantly overstepping of the rule, Gene Steratore still tends to follow the NFL more often than he dissents from the NFL,
Mhm.
I would say, generally.
I
Um,
agree with that.
but here's my then counter argument because you're claiming that it can be reviewed.
Yes.
I'm claiming that it cannot, and I'm going to
Okay.
side with the refs here because I'm stating this: replay can only review three aspects of an intentional grounding call, and this is per Football Zebras, which is a refereeing article website type deal. Three elements: where the pass landed, whether the quarterback was in the pocket, or the spot the pass was released from to establish the spot of the foul, obviously, because that's important for the 15-yard penalty. Because the effect of the ball being tipped is still a judgment call, replay can't and shouldn't get involved. So the pass landed is where the pass landed is independent of whether it was tipped or not. So you can debate all you want where the pass landed, but being tipped is not an element of that. And so it boils down to it being a judgment call on the on-field refs whether the ball was tipped or not, and they determine
What is considered the judgment? Just so we're on the same page, what's considered a judgment call?
is the effect of the ball being tipped is a judgment call. It's not reviewable. It would be essentially if the refs made the judgment call that a tangling up of two players is pass interference because that's judgment.
So in this
But it's
case,
not. But it's not
then,
reviewable. Does that make sense? Because that's
yes,
not
it does.
reviewable either.
So in this case, could technically both Andy Reid and the ref be right?
Technically,
Because
yes.
yes, it's a judgment call saying, hey, yes, it was Ted, but it landed so far away, whatever. While at the same time, the ball being so far away is directly related to the tipped ball.
Correct. And I think that this is the most likely way the conversation went between Reid and the rest because it was lengthy. Andy Reid goes, I want to challenge where the pass landed in relation to intentional grounding to see if we can get the penalty taken up. Because if the pass landed away from a receiver, but the ball was tipped, that's reviewable. And the refs go, no, it's not. The ball landed where it landed. We determined that that's intentional grounding. We've already made the judgment call that's too far away from a receiver. We're not going to review that. The tip ball has no bearing on where the ball landed according to our judgment call. And so it's not reviewable.
So maybe the refs are correct that it's not reviewable, but they're incorrect on it being intentional grounding.
And that's potentially the crux of the argument. And I think the refs were making the argument that it doesn't matter if the ball was tipped or not. The receiver was not in the area at all. It was not in the direction of a receiver. That's what they ruled, and that's not reviewable because they already ruled that.
So maybe it's not reviewable, but I disagree with their thesis.
Okay.
Maybe their evidence is correct, but I disagree with their thesis.
Do you want me to show you their evidence?
It is. Go ahead, please.
So
I will admit when I am wrong.
This is the evidence that the refs took to Andy Reid. It's this photo here. Mahomes threw the ball in this direction. There is no receiver in the middle of the field, and the ball landed here. Per the rules, that's intentional grounding. If you challenge where the ball landed in relation to it being tipped, I don't think you can make the argument per the ball's trajectory that it was going to hit this receiver or this receiver.
But wait a minute. Wait a minute, though. Can you put your cursor on where the ball landed / was going? Okay. Okay, so we're at just north of the 50 of the letters that say 50. If I were to draw a line from Patrick Mahomes through that cursor and then continue on, you do see a receiver in the area. Does it go straight to that receiver? No. But that is in the area.
So I think it's also important that we do.
I say that that's absolutely related to the ball being tipped.
I think it's important that we watch maybe the throw as well to understand that the tip didn't actually affect the ball direction all that much. And it was going towards the middle of the field where there is no receiver in the area. So they rule intentional grounding, and here's the first replay.
Okay. So this is behind the quarterback.
So Mahomes is in the tackle box, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fires. This ball is tipped.
But hold on. Pause right there. Pause right there. Pause right there. If I were to draw a line from Mahomes to the ball and continue on, I hit a receiver. Is that not towards the direction of a receiver?
So you're saying that this
Obviously,
receiver was the intended.
Yeah, I'm saying that is the clear intended receiver, and had the ball not been tipped, that receiver becomes in the area.
And I think that that's potentially exactly what Andy Reid was arguing, right? That the ball was headed towards a receiver. The ball was tipped. Therefore,
did it land near a receiver? No. No, it did not land near a receiver. I'll admit that. But it absolutely hits in the direction. And this is where the quote from Gene Steratore comes in. The tipped ball is, I want to pull up that quote again. The tipped ball, quote, is related directly to the fact that the ball got tipped.
The tip ball is related to the fact that the ball got tipped?
I'm sorry, the football lands. Quote, I started mid-quote. This football lands is where this football lands is directly related to the fact that the ball got tipped. End quote from Gene Steratore. So to me, again, he's throwing in the direction of a receiver. It landed nowhere near him because the ball got tipped. Therefore, he is not intentionally grounding the ball.
Interesting.
Maybe it's not reviewable. Maybe the refs are correct that's not reviewable. But I do stand by the fact that that should not have been intentional grounding. And I am not one, Zach, you know this about me. I am not one to blame the refs for a loss. Had this been correctly called, I still think the Chiefs lose.
Yeah,
But
and
because we're having this controversy, it's why it's my ref call of the week.
okay, and I agree with you. I think that now we've determined that the refs were correct, that you can't review this element of the play. I do think that the NFL should take action to potentially change that. However, it's an extreme edge case in the terms of intentional grounding, especially because refs tend to give quarterbacks the benefit of the doubt when they believe the ball could have been tipped and never call it. So that's why this is so unusual, is because the refs never throw the flag in these scenarios because it's so uncertain. But it shouldn't have been intentional grounding due to that fact. And typically
In that I agree with.
And so the refs did at the end make a mistake with their judgment call on the field. It's just not the ref's fault that this element can't be reviewed. It's a rare case of the NFL not breaking their rules. Actually, they break the rules whenever they want to, but they just decided not to break the rules in this case. And we'll never know why.
Well, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I do believe that Josh Allen gets the treatment that people think Mahomes gets.
But yeah, either way,
But again, that's all speculation there.
Right. And once again, this comes back to our overarching theme of transparency. If the NFL were to release a statement, release a video, release something that gives the rationale as to why this couldn't be reviewed or why the judgment call was made, we might know more. But we don't. And we don't know why this rule is the way it is.
I agree. I'm very curious on what you audience think. Please comment whether you think this should or should not have been reviewable. Comment whether you think the refs got it right or wrong. And I'd love to continue this conversation from there on. We love engaging with you guys.
But thank you for bearing with us for that lengthy and complicated discussion. I'm sure it was very similar to the conversation Andy Reid had with the actual refs. But moving on to our storylines of the week, trade deadline. We've got a lot to cover. Tyler, I know you really wanted to cover the Philadelphia Eagles moves. Do we want to start with those guys?
Yeah, absolutely. The Eagles made a lot of depth moves, and that is important because they did not, in my opinion, they did not sell the farm to go all in on one particular year. They added depth. And when you get into the later part of the season and the postseason, depth is so important to being able to make a run in the postseason. Do you have that graphic up, Zach?
It is ready to go.
So go ahead and break that graphic down for us.
Yeah. So the Eagles acquired 4 players total. Jalen Phillips, a edge/pass rusher from the Miami Dolphins. Jair Alexander, a cornerback from the Ravens. Michael Carter, a cornerback from the Jets. And Tank Bigsby, this was earlier in the season, though, a running back from the Jaguars. So these are 4 moves that mid-season the Eagles have made to acquire these players. I think the bottom 3 players are Jair Alexander, Michael Carter, and Tank Bigsby were all day 3 picks. So 5th, 6th, or 7th rounders. But Jalen Phillips was actually a 3rd rounder, a day 2 selection. So that's a pretty significant investment for what could be a rental as Phillips' contract is up at the end of the season.
Yeah, and with Carter and Bigsby both being running backs behind Saquon Barkley.
Michael Carter, I believe, is a corner.
Who am I thinking of?
You're also thinking of running back Michael Carter. There are 2 Michael Carters. Michael Carter II is a corner.
Zach, have you ever seen the show The League?
I have not.
Oh, man. So it's a show about fantasy football. And in there is there's 2 names. There's a defensive player named what's the Saints defensive player's name? Jordan something?
Is he real?
He's real. He used to play for the Saints like 5-10 years ago.
Cam Jordan?
Cam Jordan, that's what it is. There's Cam Jordan, and then there's Jordan Cameron. In one of the episodes of The League, they draft the defensive player when they meant to draft the offensive player who just has a name reversal. That's what's going on right here with Michael Carter and Michael Carter.
And it's even worse for you because they literally have the same name. So I get
Yeah,
it. But yes,
but that being
these
said,
are corner and corner as well. They've acquired two
yes.
cornerbacks.
But that being said, though, it doesn't change my thesis of Tank Bigsby being a depth running back, Jair Alexander maybe being a starting cornerback now, but Michael Carter, the cornerback, being a depth player as well, and then Jalen Phillips being an edge to add depth as well. All four of these players, whether they start or not, becomes big depth players. It adds to the depth of their positions that are already strong.
Yeah, and that Jalen Phillips move is likely spurred by the sudden retirement of Zadarius Smith that we talked about a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
That allowed them to usher, was it Brandon Graham back from retirement? So
Mm-hmm.
they've now acquired two edges by ushering one out of retirement and trading a third round pick for Jalen Phillips. So what does this mean? Why is Philadelphia doing this? They're already leading their division. They're already defending Super Bowl champs. It's because they're nervous. It's because they're nervous that their team does not have the facilities to repeat. They lost a lot of pieces on that rotational edge rush that they were so easily able to deploy against Kansas City. And a large part of that is they weren't sending too many like major blitzes, so their coverage was good. And coverage has been a major weak point opposite of Quinion Mitchell. Quinion Mitchell is a great lockdown corner that they acquired in the draft, but opposite of him has been Adoree Jackson, who, when he's not injured, has been playing poorly. So that's the addition of these two corners and why they're making them. They were scared of that lack of depth that you were just saying, because another injury, they would be completely screwed at both edge and corner. So.
Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of what the Chiefs did in 2019 when they made a claim for Terrell Suggs. Terrell Suggs is not why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 2019, but it was a good depth piece. So if one of their edges went down, you've got a veteran locker room leader who's been there before. Jair Alexander is a former All-Pro. All of these guys are good starting calibers on any given roster, and it adds depth. It's insurance.
Yes, it is.
But I wouldn't say the Eagles are nervous. I think they're very well equipped to repeat, and adding some insurance and some depth is just going to solidify that puzzle that they can repeat.
Fair, and I think that's probably closer. But the Eagles making these moves and other contenders like Kansas City, Detroit, not making moves would indicate that the Philadelphia Eagles feel they need to load up to compete with these teams, right? If they didn't,
I agree with that.
if they didn't feel they needed to load up and attack positions of need, i.e., edge rusher, where a player just retired midseason, and cornerback, a player where an injury riddled replacement guy hasn't been good, they certainly have holes on their roster that they need to fill before they face Patrick Mahomes again. I would agree.
Sure. And I do agree with that.
But
But one team that is absolutely loading up now, and they are buying to go all in, is the Colts.
Absolutely. 2 first-round picks and 23-year-old former second-round pick Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell, to acquire Sauce Gardner, the corner from New York. That's a big move. That's huge. 2 first-round
To me,
picks.
that's one of the biggest moves of this NFL trade deadline. The Colts, who, if the playoffs started right now, are the number 1 seed, just acquired one of the best receivers in the AFC.
Sorry, corners.
Man, yes.
But yeah, no, one of the best corners.
There's so much football happening that, like, in my mind, I'm like, yes, they acquired one of the best defenders in the AFC. But because there's so much football, I'm just saying the words wide receiver.
That's why we make a good team.
I promise I know ball. I promise I know ball.
That's why we make a good team. I can see that, but you have a lot of knowledge in there. So we bounce off each other. I certainly do the same thing all the time. Although I remember finally Cam Skatibu from the draft coverage that we did.
Listen, that again, it was kind of one of those things of, it was just one of those things of like, there's so many name pronunciations that we were studying that things just get jumbled.
It is funny. And yeah, it happens a lot. I think I said one player's name 3 different ways during draft coverage because they just get all so jumbled. But yes,
Probably.
the Colts are loading
yes.
up. Already the 1
Colts,
seed.
The Colts, who are, if the playoffs ended today, would be the 1 seed, just added Sauce Gardner, one of the best defenders in the NFL.
Yeah, and he had it's a rare trade too because he had just signed an extension with the Jets, 4 years, 120 mil. So that's huge. And essentially the Colts are giving up a lot. 2 first-round picks is incredibly. It also lends to their confidence in veteran Daniel Jones. You don't give up your 2 first-round picks if you don't have confidence in Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony Richardson, almost certainly a bust at this point, is still on his rookie contract, and they most certainly will not renew his 5th-year option. So they're going to stick with Jones, and they're going to be stuck with Sauce for another 4 years as well, essentially.
Yeah, and this is where, kind of like we said a little bit last week, of not necessarily for the Colts, but you can buy for the future. In this scenario, they did not buy a guy to go all in on this year for him to become a free agent. They spent 2 first-round draft picks to buy a guy for 4 years. They are buying for the future here.
Certainly, and it shores up a cornerback room that was fairly weak, but the strength of this Colts team is their offense. They've got a wonderful offensive line anchored by the 2nd best center per PFF and the best guard, and my current favorite to win protector of the year, Quentin Nelson. And they also have the best running back in football in Jonathan Taylor, pure running back. Nobody is doing it better than him. So to add a piece on that defense, I think is incredible. It makes them have legitimate Super Bowl hopes because, in my opinion, no team has legitimate Super Bowl hopes until they have enough firepower to beat Kansas City in the playoffs. Only one team has ever done it on the AFC, and it's, well, actually 2, the New England Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals that one time.
Only one active quarterback in the AFC has been able to do it.
Correct. And he's not playing. So, and his
Correct.
team is selling. So nobody
Correct.
in playoff contention has currently done it. The Colts are trying to be the next team. And I think this gets them close. We will get a test of this, won't we? Here pretty soon. Colts and Chiefs play each other.
We absolutely will. The Chiefs have a bye week on the road against Denver and then at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Within the month, we will see Colts Chiefs.
Yeah, so potentially AFC Championship preview. I am super stoked for that, but I do think that this puts the Colts very close to contention. What do you think? Do you think, as a Chiefs fan, dang, I am scared of Indianapolis now? Or are you still wary on Daniel Jones's long-term viability?
To me, it's giving young Mark Sanchez. Is he gonna bring this team to the promised land? No, I really don't. But could he give Colts fans a season to remember for a while? Yes. And to me, I think that's the ceiling. I think losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, or maybe the Chiefs lose to the Bills, maybe Josh Allen finds. I think losing the AFC Championship game to whoever is the Colts ceiling.
Interesting.
I don't see them as legit contenders with the Chiefs and the Bills both at play.
So I guess final follow-up question before we move on to our next trade. Did you think that this was their ceiling before, or do you think that this raises their ceiling to AFC Championship and before they were a first-round exit or a second-round exit, divisional exit?
It does raise their ceiling. It goes from first and second-round exit to AFC Championship exit. Gotcha. So it does raise their ceiling to me. But with the Chiefs and the Bills, both to me being the top teams in the AFC power ranking wise, I don't think the Colts are better than either of those two teams.
Gotcha. I think that if the Colts stay as healthy as they've been, they're going to give both of those teams a run for their money. But Daniel Jones does have a playoff win. But do you know how difficult it is to bet against Mahomes or Allen in the postseason. Allen has been nails in the postseason and has had numerous occasions where he probably should have beaten Patrick Mahomes. He had a lead with 13 seconds left. I mean, these are two quarterbacks, and to no fault of his own, lost that game. These are the two quarterbacks that I would put my faith in 100% to get to the AFC Championship and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So I can't bet against them quite yet. Although I do think this makes the Colts an intriguing team, and it only takes one or two things to be off for either of those teams for the Colts to vault past them. But
I agree with that. I'm not going to argue against that. Like I said, I'm putting the Colts in the contention race.
Yeah.
I'm not going to abandon the other powerhouses yet.
Yes, and I'm with you there still. Although I am really stoked to see how that preview goes, Colts Chiefs, here in a few weeks. But moving on to our next trade, the Jets were dealing. They acquired another first-round pick, which means they have 4 total, their own, the 2 from the Colts, and now 1 from the Dallas Cowboys, as they traded away star pass defensive interior player. He's a pass rusher, but he's also a D tackle. Quinnen Williams, who we did discuss in our trade rumors last week. And the Cowboys acquire another player to add to that struggling defense. What does this do for the Cowboys and the Jets, Tyler?
This does, I think, more for the Jets. The Jets are in a position to where they have to sell to maybe get their future locked in. I don't know why the Cowboys are buying. I don't get it. The Cowboys season is over. I have no idea why they're buying. We'll talk about the Cowboys again in our next trade. I have no idea why the Cowboys are buying. They're not doing anything this year. So for the Jets are hopeful. If I was a Jets fan, I would hate to lose Quinnen Williams. But the Jets are buying for the future here. It's a good move for the Jets.
It's reminiscent to me of the Detroit move in the Dan Campbell era to acquire a crap ton of draft capital and Jared Goff by trading away your star quarterback, the best quarterback your franchise has ever seen. And look at what they turned that into. I think that Aaron Glenn is attempting, and his GM are attempting to do the same thing. 4 first-round picks. They got a second rounder and a 23-year-old wide receiver to play opposite of not Sauce Gardner. Good grief, look at me, I'm doing it again. Of Garrett Wilson. And they also got Mozzie Smith, former first-round pick D tackle, who has done virtually nothing for the Dallas Cowboys, but maybe revives his career in New York. I don't know. He'll certainly play where Quinnen Williams is playing because they don't really have anybody else. So, yeah, I agree. The Jets win both of their trades, in my opinion, because they're 1-7. They've already clinched a non-winless season. You've already won a game. Sell everybody. Reset the whole organization in what's essentially going to be a very talented draft class next year, in my opinion. They could even get a quarterback and just go all in on that quarterback because Fields isn't the answer. But yeah, Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, do you want to cover the Peyton Wilson move next?
Yeah, so Logan Wilson is also another Dallas Cowboy.
Logan Wilson.
And, oh boy, the Cincinnati Bengals, man. Their defense has already been bad, and they just lost one of their star-ish players. So my question, are the Cincinnati Bengals officially rebuilding?
I mean, with the losses that they've suffered, that heartbreaker in the game of the year against the Bears, where their 3 defensive players all converged on rookie tight end Colston Loveland, and he broke out of it and scored, and they win the game. That felt like an amalgamation of this season. It was all supposed to go right for the Bengals with Burrow. It was supposed to be their year, and now it certainly is not. Trading away a defensive piece on one of the worst defenses certainly feels like giving up to me.
And you and I have both talked about the reason the Chiefs and Lions are so successful is because they draft well. The Chiefs are about to go into very tough cap space, so they have to draft well. The Detroit Lions are successful because they draft well. You need draft capital. The Cincinnati Bengals are about to be in historic draft capital hell. They need draft capital. I
Yeah.
think they are rebuilding and they are preparing for that massive cap hit, which is Joe Burrow's contract, Jamar Chase's contract, and T. Higgins' contract.
Yeah. And if they decide to bring back Trey Hendrickson's contract.
Yes.
Logan Wilson had a Pro Football Focus grade of 54, which is 58th out of 82 linebackers. He was the 59th best run defender and the 55th best coverage grade. So he's right around outside that top 50. He was hardly a good player for the Bengals, and they got rid of him. So to me, I don't know if it affects them all this much. They're still going to be bad. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. Speaking of, we were going to say we're going to touch on the Cowboys again. The Cowboys have now acquired 2 defensive pieces, a mid-tier linebacker from the Bengals and a top-tier defensive tackle from the Jets. But the Cowboys have a losing record.
Yeah, if only the Cowboys had a good pass rush. Can you imagine if the Cowboys had a guy like Micah Parsons?
Man,
Can you imagine how good that defense would be?
A real difference maker at the position, right? I mean,
yeah, it'd be crazy. The Cowboys would be a whole new team if they could just acquire someone like Micah Parsons.
And look, when you look at the Cowboys season, to reiterate why I think that buying here is foolish and a move that indicates severe desperation from Jerry Jones. Here are the Cowboys' wins this season, okay? So week 1, they lost to the Eagles. They beat the Giants, led by Russell Wilson, by 3 in overtime. They lost by 3 scores to the Chicago Bears. They tied the Green Bay Packers. They beat the Jets. They lost to the Panthers. They beat the middling Commanders, and then they lost to the Broncos and Cardinals back-to-back. This team might be trashed.
So what's the Cowboys' overall record?
It is 3-4-1. Or actually, it might be 3-5-1. It is 3-5-1. Excuse me.
So what are they buying for a wild card push?
And
what's going on in Dallas?
It gets even more dire, Tyler, when you look at the NFC playoff standings. There are so many there are so many teams in the NFC that could take that final wildcard spot. Do you know who the team in that 7 seed is currently? I'll give you a hint.
Go ahead and give me a hint.
It's Detroit.
Detroit's the
7 seed that's how good the conference is. That's how good they are.
Why are they buying?
Exactly. They are behind.
This is peak sell look.
Right.
They sell.
They already sold with Parsons, in my opinion. Why not keep the sell going? Spending all that draft capital is dumb. They are behind the Panthers, who beat them and have tiebreaker. They are behind the entire NFC West. Seahawks, Rams, Niners, and Cardinals. Cardinals just beat them. They're 3-5. They are behind the Eagles, of course, in their division, and I don't think they have a chance of catching them in the division. And they're behind the entire NFC North. The Vikings have 4 wins. The entire NFC North is above them. And mind you, the Bears and the Vikings are out of the playoffs, and they're behind both of them. This is dire situation. They would have to basically win out to guarantee a wild card spot if they can't beat the Eagles and take the division by some miracle. It reeks of, I'm about to be too old to enjoy the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Jerry Jones, and I'm extremely desperate. That's what it reeks of to me.
100%. And I'm in a wild minority of NFL fans. I actually like the Dallas Cowboys. I do like that team. I want to see them succeed. So Cowboys viewership fans, empathize with me for a second. The reason it's weird to say we with the Dallas Cowboys fans, but the reason we are frustrated in watching what the Cowboys are doing is because it's so obvious of what the answer is. And the answer is to just do whatever Jerry Jones doesn't want to do. That's the answer. Just whatever Jerry Jones says should be the rule book of what not to do. And it's so obvious to everybody that Jerry Jones built the dynasty and is also preventing another dynasty from occurring. Yeah. Weird to say dynasty when they haven't made it to the NFC Championship game in my lifetime. But he built the dynasty of the 90s Cowboys, but he's also destroying the Cowboys and making them the laughingstock of the NFL year after year.
Yeah, they're the biggest brand that continues to falter on the biggest stage year in, year out.
Not even the biggest stage. They falter on offstage stuff.
That's true.
This is not a Broadway production that is failing. This is an off-Broadway show that will never succeed.
You're right, and unfortunately, they're buying. And I will make the prediction right now. And Cowboys fans everywhere can make me eat my words at the end of the season. They will have made all of these moves, given up all of this capital. They will not make the playoffs in the NFC this year. I am counting on
100%.
it.
100%. This move is going to prevent them from getting a top 10 pick is the other thing too. They're going to miss the playoffs, and they're also going to miss having a high draft selection.
That is correct. And speaking of teams that are in deep trouble, there is one more that we have to cover before we go to our own team's recap. And that is the Jaden Daniels injury. He suffered a season ender in a game against the Seahawks where the score was 38-14. What a pointless, terrible, stupid decision. Jaden Daniels now out for the year. The Commanders, who basically went all in on their aging core once again this year with the trade for Laramie Tunsil, it does not pay off. They will miss the playoffs. They are screwed without Daniels. And this is a team that we talked about in the offseason of having a window after defeating the 15-2 Detroit Lions in the NFC divisional game and a few silly mistakes away from beating the Eagles and moving on to the Super Bowl. Is this team's window done now that they have to wait another year with this core?
I don't want to say done, but we're starting to get into Cincinnati Bengals territory where last year was 2021. Now we're 2022. The quarterback gets hurt. Do they rebound and keep that window open, or do they start to plunder? I don't think the window is closed yet, but they have to win next year. Otherwise, I think it is.
Yeah, and I hesitate to even say they have a window next year. I hesitate to say it because it's looking more and more like that 2024 run was a massive fluke. They only have 6 picks left in the draft next year after the trade. To me, that just seems, and they have a first rounder, a third rounder because they traded away that second rounder for Laramie Tunsil. They don't have a fourth rounder either because they traded the second and the fourth away for Tunsil. So they have a first, a third, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh. That's not enough for me to reload. One, I don't know. It's probably going to be maybe 2 picks in the top 100 and then some day threeers. It's not enough. They're going to have to figure something else out. And their core is already so old. They're going to have to make some free agent signings on the last 2 years of Jaden Daniels' rookie contract. It's going to be really tight. And to me, I don't think that they are going to be able to do it.
I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I agree with you. But the reason I say the window's not closed is because there is a path. Number one, they have to get Jaden Daniels back earlier in the season. They have to hit a home run on those day 3 picks, which is doable. You and I have both experienced home runs on day 3 picks. And then they have to buy at the trade deadline, and they have to buy the right pieces of real estate.
Yeah.
If Jaden Daniels is back and plays well, they hit a home run on their day 3 picks, and they buy the right real estate. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at not a dynasty by any means at all, but now we're looking at a contending Washington Commanders. It's slim, but the window's not closed.
I'll agree to that. And the Commanders have proven to be competent enough since Dan Snyder sold the team to get that.
Yes.
To get that result, to make that result possible, I guess, because that's far from a guarantee. But I think that it's possible. Slim, but possible. But unfortunately, we're moving on to our next segment. This is the first time since week 1 that Tyler and I have both had to cover losses for our respective teams. It's good that it's taken this long, but it sucks that both of our teams dropped a big one, and they were both big. And I'll let you begin.
The Chiefs are not the favorites to win the division. but they are the favorites to win the Super Bowl still. And that's insane. But I agree with it. The Chiefs have shown that they're not capable of winning the division. And I'm not saying that the sky is falling because they lost to a really good Bills team on the road. But how many times can we have this conversation of, well, the Chargers played a perfect game, and, well, the Eagles are a good team, and, well, the Bills are a good team? If it's adding up to where now the Chiefs are 5-4, they have zero room for error to win the division still. So to me, I think the division's out of the case. However, and this is the good side for Chiefs fans, we played not our best game, and we still only lost by one score. So if we can get that into the playoffs, when we're in a desperate situation, of course, because playoffs is obviously desperate, it's do or die. Patrick Mahomes, he can win on the road. So I don't even know how to recap it. The division's over, but the Super Bowl's still at play. It's weird to think that that's the case, but I do think that's the case.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that it's so tough to count out Patrick Mahomes once the playoffs start. He gets like this weird aura and fire about him that makes him unkillable in the playoffs. I mean, it's only happened a handful of times. It's more likely to not happen than it is to happen.
Right. In his entire career, he has lost twice prior to the Super Bowl.
Right. It's more likely that he makes the Super Bowl
too
than miss it. Exactly. And you know, to me, I feel like, yes, the division is out of it, especially with how good the Broncos and Chargers look. And with the Chiefs uncharacteristically dropping divisional games like that Chargers one to begin the season. Mm-hmm. However, I do think that the Super Bowl is far from impossible at this point. And in fact, I do think that out of the AFC West teams, the Chiefs are still the most likely to win it. I don't think the Chargers, who just lost Joe Alt for the season, have a chance. And I think the Broncos also have some holes on their roster that will be exposed come playoff time, whether it's against the Bills, the Chiefs, or the Colts.
Real quick, though, before we go on to the Lions, though, the Chargers did acquire a new tackle, though.
Yes.
They did make a trade. I don't think it's enough for the Chargers to be like contenders and replace Joe Alt, but it might be enough to win the division still, which is
yes.
Again, I've never in my football life ever seen a scenario where a team has very little chance to win the division, but very high chance to win the Super Bowl. I've never seen that in my life, but I do think that's where the Chiefs are at.
Yes, and I think I tend to agree with that. With everything you just said, Trevor Penning doesn't move the needle for the Chargers. That's the tackle they just acquired. But it certainly makes them more competitive in each game that they play in, because without two starting tackles, how competitive can you really be? But moving on to my team, who faced a similar problem, they dropped a bad divisional game to a struggling Vikings team and a quarterback in his third start. It was bad. It was brutal. Every single phase of the game looked bad. The offense was out of sync. The run game was terrible, and Jared Goff didn't make any major mistakes, but didn't elevate the team either. And I think it was partly because the offensive line played horribly. The special teams nearly allowed 200 return yards and suffered a blocked field goal. The punting did great. And then the defense, Terrion Arnold got his first interception, but the team led up 27 points to a very, very bad Vikings offense that put up a measly 10 against the Chargers last week. And more damningly, the defense allowed a bunch of rushing yards. So the bad is everything looked horrible, and the Lions lost. The good news is everything looked horrible, and the Lions only lost by 3 and had a blocked field goal. That's the silver lining. The Lions can play like crap and look stupid and only lose by 3. And I don't think that this bad of a performance will ever be repeated by this team again. And I put it into context of last season. The Lions last season won 15 games. That's already unattainable by this team. They have 3 losses. They didn't get punched in the mouth, and they didn't learn enough from losses last year because they kept getting bailed out by silly wins at the end of games. I would rather this team limp into the playoffs with 6 losses than cruise in with 15 and get curb stomped by the Commanders. I would rather this team be more gritty and overcome more adversity going into the postseason than overcome less, if that makes sense.
It does, and you kind of took the words from my mouth a little bit too. They're only a half game out behind Green Bay from the division.
Who
So
lost
you
this
guys
week?
still do what?
Who lost this week? Green Bay as well.
Yes, to who lost to the Panthers. So the black and blue division is still fully up for grabs. So I agree. If the Detroit Lions come into the playoffs as even a 3 seed, you win the division, you get the 3 seed. The gate's wide open for you guys. You guys are battle tested. Holy crap. Lions might be on to something now.
Yeah, and I knock on wood here, the Lions are much healthier than they were last season at this stage. The Lions have most of their defensive starters and are only set to gain more back from injury. DJ Reed's coming back. Marcus Davenport's coming back. Malcolm Rodriguez is coming back. Kirby Joseph will be back. All by the end of the season. That's wonderful. None of these are season enders. The Lions did lose left guard Christian Mahogany to a broken bone in the leg, but it's a minor broken bone, and he's going to be back by December, end of December. So come playoff, he'll be back. And it's not a knee cartilage tear. It's not one of these big boy injuries that takes a long time to heal because they're big. It's a bone break. It'll come back stronger. And so if the Lions can weather the storm with a backup left guard and keep the defense and offense healthy and win the games they're supposed to win, they can very easily take the division by beating the Packers at home on Thanksgiving. They can very easily get healthy at the right time and go on a run. I am way more confident about this Lions team going on a playoff run than last year's Lions team, even though statistically last year's team was much better. And that's not to say there's not play calling concerns by John Morton, but there's plenty of time to iron that out. Dan Campbell's a genius. Remember, he stripped play calling duties in week 9 of 2021 from Anthony Lynn to take it over himself, and the Lions were much better because of it. Don't rule out Dan Campbell making a similar move if situation becomes dire enough, but I don't think that it will. I think Dan Campbell knows how to rally his coaches, knows how to get them to be better, and will make them better. So that's my recap of Detroit. Once again, like you said, sky isn't falling. Everything is still attainable.
I absolutely agree. Definitely some games to keep an eye on for Detroit, especially that Thanksgiving game coming up in less than a month.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. I'm nervous, but I'll be excited to watch it. It'll be cinema.
You and I both have a Thanksgiving game. I'm so excited for that.
I know. It's the first time the Chiefs have played on T-Day in a long time. So maybe as far back as I can remember. I don't know. You probably know that better than I do.
I think we played on Thanksgiving in like 2006 or something, and then played in Dallas on Thanksgiving in like the late 90s. Like something along those lines sounds familiar.
It is a treat for the fans in Kansas City, no doubt.
Very much so.
But moving on from our team's recaps, we've got games of the week. Must-watch games of the week. Tyler's got them on tap for us.
We do. My 3 games of the week starts on Thursday. I love highlighting Thursday games as long as they don't get slept on. I've got Raiders at Broncos. The Broncos are coming in as a much better team than the Raiders, but a division that stretches back to hating each other since 1960. You never know what can occur in those games. The Raiders hate the Broncos. The Broncos hate the Raiders. Anything can happen. And the Raiders would love nothing more than to play spoiler for Denver's division hopes. I absolutely anticipate a rockin' Denver crowd and a desperate Raiders team that has nothing to lose. I expect a close defensive battle. My next game is it's actually not the next game in chronological order, but the next game I want to talk about is Eagles at Packers on Monday Night Football, another primetime game. This could also very well be a playoff preview. Eagles and Packers, it could be if the Lions end up taking the division, then it could be the Packers going on the road to Philly. This is going to be in Lambeau Field this Monday, but like I said, to reiterate, it could very well be a wild card matchup. We've got Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. We've got two scrappy defenses with a couple superstars on said defense. We've got two head coaches that are somewhat scrutinized, but also somewhat geniuses in their own way. It's going to be a very good, evenly matched game as well. Monday Night
said.
Football. Do not go to bed early on Monday night. And then the last game that I want to talk about for a reason is Patriots at Buccaneers. These are two teams that are quietly doing very well this season. Patriots are currently leading the division over the Buffalo Bills. The Buccaneers are facing Baker Mayfield, who's top 3 in MVP who's top 3 in the MVP race right now and leading their division as well. I don't believe this is a Super Bowl preview, but this low-key could be Rams versus Chiefs of the 2019 season, where you've got two high-powered offenses playing against each other in what could be a great matchup. If you're looking for something to watch during the day on Sunday, don't miss Patriots Buccaneers.
I will say, this is the most hyped you ever gotten me for matchups this season. I cannot wait to watch that last one. And as far as the second game goes, the Packers versus Eagles, our most watched city is Philadelphia. And so I don't say this very often, but this is a treat for you Philadelphia Eagles fans who watch our podcast. Go Birds! We need you guys to win so bad. I would love nothing more than you to walk into Lambeau and kick the Packers' butts. So go freaking Birds.
There's one last bonus piece of content that I want to add about that Eagles-Bucks game. Or excuse me, about that Eagles-Packers game. The Packers are the team that brought in the rule to ban the tush push. Of course did not pass. I expect at least 4 tush pushes in that game, just to put a middle finger to the Packers.
Oh man, that's such a good call out. I know what's going to happen now. Sirianni might do it from 2 yards out. He's so petty.
I do it from 5 yards out.
But that one's going to be cinema. I cannot wait for that one. But that is all we have for you guys. Make sure to tune in for a special announcement next week. We're really excited about this month of the NFL coverage. But once again, thanks for watching.
Appreciate you guys.